Hello everybody, welcome to the stream tonight. Let me know if you guys can hear me and everything. I actually tried to stream Saturday and it was just going to be a short stream, but then I opened up all my stuff and realized that all my audio software was broken. So I had to re-download a bunch of stuff, I had to reset up all my presets, so hopefully everything sounds good. But yeah, welcome to 2022 everybody. Hello Dublia, welcome to the stream. Hello A to the J. Yeah, Happy New Year. So it's been a nice break. Working on Hello Animation Mob, welcome to the stream. Just been working at Luma, working on some cool new feature stuff. We released the Leo rig, it's been a huge success. Lots of people using it, animating with him. It's been a lot of fun. We're working on the next rig, which we're about to release, some initial concept art. Also, what the rig is going to be. It's going to be super cool, but we already immediately hit the ground running on the next one after Leo released. So, hello Noelia. Hello everybody. So, today's going to be a bit of a different stream. There's been a couple things that I've been really excited to try, and just because of work and all this other stuff, I've never really had the motivation. Yes, I can in fact show you the bestest rig in the whole wide world. Hello Matheson. Cube Cult. Hello Pratham. Welcome back. Give me, let's see, how many Mayas am I going to open up today? That's the question. Okay, screen share 1. Also, for the first time, I am making the migration to Maya 2022, so we're going to see how I like. I've seen a lot of cool things that they're adding to rigging. Oh yeah, that's another thing I'm doing. I'm taking a rigging class, so I decided to finally bite the bullet and take a class at Rigging Dojo. So I'm currently trying to work on joint placement and rigging in my spare time. So that's another cool thing. But here is the rig I speak of. His name is Leo. Let me find the link to Gumroad for anybody who wants to see him in person, maybe buy him. Boop. There you go. That link should take you to the rig. But yeah, this was a collection of a couple professional animators who just wanted to make rigs for the community. So this is our first one. We hope to make hundreds more in the future. But yeah, he looks super cool. Another thing that I don't think a lot of people realize about Leo is that we set up, hello Animation Addict, we set up all of his shaders, which is a really cool thing that I had no idea about till we decided to make Leo. But if you go to your surface shaders, which if anyone doesn't know, this blue thing is what attaches your shader to the geometry itself. So this is Leo's skin. If I just unplug this, let me just dock this on the side here. Boop. Okay. So fun fact, move this over here. Do I provide the service? So as of right now, we've actually been reached out to by quite a few people wanting us to service for rigging. We've actually had a lot of like really big name like projects wanting us to provide rigging services. Although we would like to in the future, our big problem is right now we're all working full time at other studios, and this is kind of just a side gig that we're doing. So none of us are actually full time. So until we make enough revenue that we're able to hire artists full time, we can't really take client work because we can't really promise a deadline. Because, you know, our modeling artist could immediately get a big contract and modeling is delayed for a few months. Or our rigger could get a contract and rigging gets delayed by 6 months. Or one of us could get a contract or get pulled off on OT and, you know, animation quality is, you know, delayed. So, like, even though client work would be cool, we're gonna have to wait until we're able to be more stable before we can promise anybody work and deadlines and quality and that kind of stuff. But ideally, we'd like to be there sometime soon. Yeah, no problem. It's been a blast making Leo and way more creatively fulfilling than I had thought. And we're excited to make bigger and better things because with every rig, we're just pushing our skills to make the next rig that much better and learn that much more from the current rig. So I already have a list of personal things that I want to make better in the next rig, and we're hiring new artists, new things, and it's going to be exciting. But to continue with a cool thing I was going to show, let's just start with just switch this to this so I can actually see sock skin, Leo skin shade. Okay, there we go. So if in case nobody knows, this is the shader material. This is what decides, okay, what's the color on this character going to look like? Subsurface. This also dictates the subsurface under the skin. This roughness decides how shiny it's going to be. Just mess around. I don't know why. Nothing's working on it. Let me try something real quick. Normal. Boop. Material attributes. Leo skin shader. Oh, that's because I'm messing with the render shader, which is what I wanted to show in the first place. But okay, so back to my demo. Let me turn off selection highlighting for now. So this Leo VO9 skin material is what attaches the shader to the geometry itself. So this is the shader, you know, I have ambient color, I have transparency, all that stuff. This is a viewport shader because this is a Lambert. So if you can see, if I take this and I delete it, the shaders are still there. I still have this material Leo skin, but I have nothing attaching it to the geometry itself. So if I undo that, it's still gonna mess up because that's what Maya likes to do. But if I go back here, if I go to Graph Network, I just delete this and then I attach it back. Assign material to selection. There we go. Now it's back to how we wanted it. And just to make sure, let me create and make sure that this still works. And it does not. So I'm going to very quickly attach this back so I can continue to show what I was going to show. That's super cool. Okie dokie, so we have this. Cool. Okay, so what I was going to show with this is that normally, the way that I understood it before we started working on Leo is that you have Graph Network, you have something like this, which is a Lambert, and you assign this to the skin, and you have it. A Lambert is not going to look pretty in a render because it's just a viewport shader. That's what it is. Typically, you use something called an AI standard surface shader to connect to your geometry to make it render ready. But the problem is that AI standard surface shaders, you can connect it and you can like make it look super pretty whenever you click the render button. but it typically doesn't look good in the viewport. So you either have to make a switch off of, do I want it to look good in the viewport or do I want it to look good in the render view? But you typically can't have both. But something that I figured out later when I was working on this, our surfacing artist showed me this, is that you can actually have an Arnold surface shader and a shading attribute attached to the same geometry. So what that means is, let's say I have this right here. This is Leo. And normally, where's the Leo skin? Here it is, graph network. So this is my render shader. So this has the base color attached to the subsurface. It has this attached to the base. I have a roughness map. I have a normal map, all this nice stuff that makes it look really good in the render view. But in the viewport, it doesn't look very good at all. So what I ended up doing is you take this AI standard surface and you attach it to this Arnold surface shader. And then I take my blend, which would just be skin shader right here, which looks really nice in the viewport. And I attach the out color of the blend into the in color of the surface shader. So now I have skin shader 1 as the surface material and Leo material, Leo skin render shader under the surface shader attribute. That way, if I want to animate in the viewport, I want to do a play blast, I have this really pretty skin. But if I click render, I have this really nice render material. So then you can have the best of both worlds. In order to switch off, can you switch off the facial controls to focus on the body? For me, like, you can turn off the bend controls secondary. I never found the facial controls that distracting when I was working on the body. But if you want to, what I typically will do, if I can load up Animbot real quick to get my hotkeys. What I typically do is I'll select all the controls that I don't want, which I need to turn back on selection highlighting. I'll select all the controls I don't want. I'll add them to a display layer and turn them off like that. That way you have a very clean, no facial controls, if that makes sense, Animation Addict. But Hypershade, there we go. So that's just a super cool trick that we have on this rig. Rather than having to set up all your render shaders and have it look like crap in the viewport, or have your viewport shaders have it look like crap in the render, we have the best of both worlds, which is just a really cool feature I don't think a lot of people know about. And just to show the atrociousness that is this character, the viewport shaders, this is what it would look like if you tried to delete this, out color, surface shader. Oh, and it's deciding it's not going to work for me. 1 second. Break connection. There we go. This is what typically looks like when you try to use a viewport shader in the renderer, which is a blend. Just very shiny, very smooth, very gross. So yeah, just a cool little feature. And now I have messed up my rig and I need to open without saving. And with that, 1 second, I need to get my things set up. Okay. So I'm just going to do what I was planning to do is I'm going to do a quick demo because I've seen a lot of people, students who don't know how to set up a cleanly scene in Maya when they're ready to animate a shot. and it ends up creating a lot of issues in the future for them when they try to animate their shot. And then I'm going to go into something super fun that I've been trying to find the time to play with, which is a software called Roomba, which I'm hoping to animate a little bit with today, as well as try to show off my workflow for animating creatures. So if you want to know what Roomba is, here's their YouTube channel, which I can copy paste a link here. Boop. It's a brand new animation software, which normally I'm very skeptical about, because a new animation software means new everything, usually. So like Blender, good software, but there's no rigs, really. There's no feature quality rigs for Blender. And if me as an animator, not only do I have to learn a whole new software, I also have to learn a whole new joint hierarchy. I have to learn a whole new way of skinning. I have to learn a whole new everything, right? Everything is different. Nothing is like Maya. And so for a rigger to switch from rigging in Maya to rigging in Blender, it is very hard. And I've talked to quite a few riggers who say that the rigging pipeline in Blender just isn't there yet. And so immediately for me, that's a turnoff, because I'm like, okay, if the rigs aren't as good, there's not really any reason for me to learn this. What intrigues me about Roomba is that it uses Maya's rigging pipeline and Maya's rigging language, and all it does is plug that into the animation software. So I can use Maya rigs. Now, granted, there's a few limitations at this point, which they're actually working very hard to support all rigging nodes from Maya to Roomba. At this point, they're supporting most of them, but there's a couple here and there, which, to show you what it looks like here, I have Roomba, and I'm trying out one of the rigs, which everything works, but it seems like certain mirroring functions within the joints don't quite work perfectly, which I was playing around with right before the stream started. But what excites me the most about this software, once I get through the ad, is that it cuts out all the junk that Maya has in the coding that causes your scene to be heavy. So for example, in a Maya scene, I could have 3 characters and barely get 10 frames per second. I could take those 3 same characters, put them in Roomba, and I would get 60 frames a second, 70 frames a second, because this software is designed specifically for animating. And so they advertise that you can have up to 40 characters in one scene and not have any lag at all, have 24 frames per second. You can also, if you have the time for it, you can actually paint your controls onto your geometry, so you can have this kind of effect of animating the skin itself, which is really cool. So they have a very cool Presto from Pixar-ish type of workflow, which I'm very excited to try out. I've played with some of the rigs that they have. The ghosting also seems really cool, of being able to animate basically 6 or 7 frames at the same time. So, and the other cool thing about this software is that, again, everything still goes into Maya. So you rig in Maya, you model in Maya, you export it out to Roomba, you animate in Roomba, you export back out to Maya, you render, do everything else in Maya. So it's still like what I know, but it's just animation is way more buff. So after I show how to set up a scene, I'm actually going to attempt, if I can, to find 2 rigs that will make their way into Roomba without any errors, and then try to animate a test or something fun, just to try out the tools. They have some cool sculpting tools. They have some cool constraints. It'll take me a while. It'll take me a bit of watching tutorials and stuff to be able to actually animate quickly in there. But I thought it would be fun to show on stream and might be informative. And another nice thing about Roomba is if you can find rigs that work in it. Right now, Roomba's free for non-commercial use. So as opposed to Maya, where it's like very iffy if you want to have a school license, you have to be at a school, or you have to pay $250 a year. For someone who is not at a school but still wants to learn and doesn't have the money to shell out $250 for an indie license, Room is a very free, very powerful tool that you can still use with Maya rigs. So might be something for a lot of people to use in the future, which is really cool. So what I'm going to try to demo today is Daniel Stewart creature. I was gonna use Leo. I don't think I'm gonna use Leo because currently there's a couple rigging nodes used in Roomba that are not supported yet. Yes, Roomba, please support us. So here's a scene which is very messy looking here. Let me turn up my near clip plane to 1. There we go, that's a little better looking. Here's a very rough scene that I exported from Unreal Engine. For anybody who uses Unreal, you could probably recognize this is the mobile game environment. But I was playing around with it and I wanted to do a cool shot with maybe a creature and a character. So this is going to kind of go into the cleanliness of setting up a scene. I took that geo, I exported it here, and that's the first set. This is a first note for setting up your scene in Maya. Get all of your scene geometry, put it in a scene, and save it. That's the first thing. If you're planning to rig your geometry, if you're planning to rig anything with any sort of controls, do it in a separate Maya file and reference that into your main scene. This geometry here, I'm not planning to touch any of it. So I don't really need to reference it because it's just one more thing I have to reference. It's one more thing I have to keep track of. I'm lazy. If there's anything that is not changing at all, I'm going to import it into my scene. And then if I have to, I can delete it out and re-import something else. There's no reason I really have to reference any of this entire set into my scene because it's not going to change. So actually what I'm going to do, because I don't need any of this, I'm actually going to delete this out. There we go. Because it's way too much stuff. And I know because I already did a quick previs that I'm only going to be using this little section. Namespaces for one, I prefer this, but I also prefer to be able to delete things. So for like this, what I was saying is I imported a large chunk of my set. And then I did previs and I animated this previs guy right here to get my energy. And then I realized I don't need any of that over there. Had I referenced it, I couldn't have deleted it. Also, it gets very messy in the hypershade. If I wanted to texture or color or do anything with shaders, you can't delete shaders. So even if there's nothing on a shader ball that you referenced in, you can't delete it. If I import or open up my environment in the scene, I can hit, I can go here, I can hit edit, delete unused nodes. And immediately I just got rid of 4 shader nodes that's messing up my hypershade. But if I'd referenced it, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So for me, it's just cleaner to import or open. Now, if you do import because of the namespaces, you can go to General Namespace Editor. And if you have any namespaces in your scene, you can actually delete and merge your nodes to the root, which will clean up a messy, like Leo_control group. You can get rid of that. Yeah, exactly. Like it's definitely personal preference, but for me, I prefer anything that's not animated to be imported into my scene. That way I can delete it or modify it if I need to. Anything that's going to have a control, anything that's going to be animated, I'm going to want to create a reference into that scene. Now that said, this was something I rigged into my scene and I was too lazy to reference it. Ideally, I'd want to reference it, but it's so simple. It's literally just a piece of geo and I attached a squash deformer to it so I can like add some squash and stretch through the energy of the scene. But I did this in maybe an hour. If you guys want to see, this is just a quick idea I prevised out on Saturday just for funsies, just to play around with, like guys running, jumps behind a rock, and after he jumps, I'm gonna add a beat of a creature just like barreling and like stopping here and like breathing and idling for a cool like in pose. So it's a rough idea. I hope I can do it in Roomba. If I can't, I'll end up doing it in Maya. That way, because I'd like to show off mainly my creature workflow because I feel like a lot of people don't. It's a mystery how to animate creatures because it's relatively different than bipeds, as opposed to bipeds, which I feel is more pose, get your acting, shoot your reference. Creatures is more get the root, get the character, get a cube if you need to, animate the energy, then take the torso, animate the torso, animate the offsets of the hips and the chest moving and breaking of joints and all of that. And then you get in there and then you add the plants, you add the weight shifts with the clavicles, you add some more weight shifts with the body, and then you add, head movement and all of that. So ideally, I'd like to show that off as well. But hopefully, this is kind of the base previs we're going to be doing with this shot. And then if we can, after it all, I can put it into Unreal and maybe add some lights and stuff and then render it out and make it look all cool, which I think would be really fun. But without further ado, the other thing I wanted to go into super quickly about setting up your scene. So for now, I'm going to throw Leo in there just because I was planning to do the demo with him. But I don't think I'm going to be using Leo. So first we're going to create a new scene. So let's say I have my scene set up. That was my scene. Boop, I got that in there. I previs some stuff. I got a camera in there. We're all good. Now we're ready to put our characters in. The first character I'm thinking about using is Riggs. I would use that same workflow animation mob. Typically for walk cycles, run cycles, everything relies on where the character is in screen space, right? So if I have a character here and he's like da 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 and then slides, right? I could get in there and I could start doing poses. I could start doing my passing pose, my contact pose, all of those. But if I realize halfway through the walk, oh, he's taking too many steps. This is not going to work timing wise. I need way more time, but I can't add time, right? So then I'm like, shoot, I'm going to have to make him walk faster and stride longer to make it happen in the time needed. Well, then it's like, oh, shoot, I have to delete all the poses I created, and now I have to reblock out all my poses. The solution for that is if I have 100 frames for the character to go here to here, well, then I do that. Frame 1, he's here. Frame 100, he's here. Then I see, okay, he's moving like that. He's moving this quick. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now let's add a couple boom, 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 boom. Okay, that feels pretty good. That doesn't feel too fast. That doesn't feel unhuman the way he's moving towards camera. So it's like, okay, well, I already know the principles of if the character's down here, that's his down pose. Let me pose out a down pose. If character's up here, that's his up pose. Well, let's pose out an up pose. So then I'm like down, up, down, up, down, up. And then I'm like, okay, well, between an up and a down is a contact. Well, let's pose a contact pose. Between a down and an up pose is your passing pose. Let's pose an up passing pose. So then I go through after I've done the cog, the energy, and I pose out my poses. And then I know for a fact that those poses are going to work because I've already done all the brunt work of figuring out the energy. And I know exactly how far to place his feet because I've already done the first and last pose. So that's the way I do it. That's exactly how I treat creatures, because as painful as it is to animate a walk or a run with 2 feet, imagine how crazy that is with 4 or 6 or 8 or 30 if you're animating like a centipede or something. When you have 32 feet, there are no passing poses, those kind of things. Like, it works totally different. So you have to take the body, which is what people are looking at, and the centipede motion or the snake motion or whatever. I remember one of my students, Kane, was animating an octopus. If you have an octopus, it's all about that slidey side to side motion. And then the legs are just to make pretty poses and to make the character feel like it's like pulling forwards. So, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question. The Daniel Fotheringham method. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Animation mob. There's a good. I don't know about Daniel Fotheringham. I know what really got the idea into my head was Sean Kelly wrote an article for the AM blog called "Forget the Feet," and he was talking about the method of hide the feet, animate the body. But I would imagine Daniel Fotheringham. Yes, I actually have seen this. I didn't know the name, but yeah, exactly this. The body, boom. Then add the feet later. This is exactly what I was referring to. So yeah, this is basically how I animate every creature. Because feet, as important as they are and as cool as they look, they're secondary to the body. If the body doesn't work, the feet are not going to work. If the body works, the feet will work. So even though they're very important to look cool, it's impossible for them to look good if the body's not done. So with that, what is happening here? This is a cool creature I built by Colossus. And I actually retextured him to look super cool. In some reason, his textures are not showing up. And that makes me sad. Let's take the body geo. What's going on? What happens if I render? Nothing happens if I render. Oh, what the heck? Hey, his textures are here. Interesting. Okay, so his textures show up in the render, but they don't show up in the viewport. That is very strange. Let me try. Okay, let me try opening up VO7. This is the original rig and just reassigning the textures. But I'll do that later. One thing I don't like about my 2022 is all these stinking messages that come up. I don't understand what or why. But this is a cool rig built by Colossus. He's got really nice shoulder controls, nice arm controls, and I think he has really interesting proportions that would make for a really cool shot. So I'm hoping to use this character in my scene. But so the first thing I'm going to think about is like when I'm animating and setting up a scene to be animated, it's like, okay, how do I want this character in my shot? An obvious answer is reference it in. So if I have to make any modifications, I'm going to open the scene. Yes, thank you for the link. I'm going to open this scene. I'm going to make my changes to the rig, and I'm going to save it as a different rig. So I'm going to hit save as Liz rig. It's VO8. So VO8. And I'm going to put like new textures because I'm going to retexture this real quick, just to show about making changes to your rig. The reason I don't reference this into a new scene or import it into a new scene and then reference it in is for what Alan was talking about earlier, which is namespaces. And namespaces are huge if you ever have to replace your rig. And so right now, if I select the control, it's C underscore root A underscore control underscore 0. If I reference this in, which I'm just going to reference another rig in here just to show. Rigs, Lizard rig, rig VO7. Let's just reference this in. So now I have two of the exact same rig. One is referenced, the other is imported. So if you can see, this is the referenced rig. This is the opened rig. This one just says C main A control whatever. This says Liz underscore rig underscore VO7 dot dot C underscore main A underscore control 0. So now the namespace has changed and you have all this in front of it. So since I'm already going to reference this into my animation scene, as I said before, what I'm going to get on this rig, if I reference it and then reference it again or import it again, I'm going to get Liz underscore rig underscore VO07 underscore Liz underscore rig underscore VO07 dot control. So it's like big long namespace. And let's say for some reason the rig I'm referencing in breaks and I have to reference in a new one, it will not let me re-reference it. It'll break the animation unless the namespace is the exact same. And I actually had that issue with one of my shots where I had made a mod and I had imported Jules rig into my shot. I had imported him into a mod folder, modded him, saved him, and then referenced him in, and he had a double namespace and the rig broke. So I tried to reference in just normal Jules and the animation would be in a T-pose because they were the wrong namespaces. So I'm just going to remove this reference. So I'm going to make my changes to my rig. So rig master, model, mid-res. I'm going to use another cool trick. If anybody ever uses Substance Painter, a cool way to get your substance textures into your scene is to use the substance apply workflow to maps. And you can just hit select multiple maps. I can go to Arnold textures and I have Liz body. And I'm just going to select all the 001 ones because these are UDIMs. So I want, which makes me realize why it wasn't working. So I don't even have to do this because I can open up VO8. I forgot this character has UDIMs. So if anybody has a character with UDIMs, what you're going to have to do whenever you open up your shot, viewport 2.0, regenerate UV tile previews. And that will make the characters' textures show up. Haha, look at me. I know a thing. So this has UDIMs in it. I've made my changes, etc., etc. Let's just save this as LizRig VO8 new textures. Save. So now I'm going to open my Leo creature, scenes, monster hunt, and I'm going to reference into my scene. Now, ideally, for cleanliness sake, for easiness sake, I try to make everything at the 0 point. But due to the fact that this is going into Unreal, I can't move anything. What is wrong with this Maya 2022 and these error messages? I can't move any of the scene geo because if I move it in Maya, it's not going to export directly back into Unreal. So can I please turn off security preferences? Is that going to allow me to... Oh, thank goodness. Those stupid messages are gone. That was getting annoying. Tiny boy. So I've already scaled my scene to the height of the Leo rig. So what I'm just going to have to do is I'm going to have to scale this rig to match the size I want it to be because the scene's already the size that I want it to be. Typically, if it's just a one character scene, I'm going to put the character in the scene and size my environment to that because typically when you scale a character, you sometimes get into issues. But since I have two characters, one size is right, one size isn't, I'm just going to have to take the risk of scaling this character and hoping that nothing breaks, hoping that it was rigged properly. So I'm going to check the sizing in my shot cam because I want to see cinematically. I want this creature to be pretty big and imposing looking. I think 9 would be universally is going to be cool. So now he's in my scene. UV. He's also really dark. I'll have to fix the darkness with the base color. But let's say, for example, I am a gambler. Let's say, for example, I have this, I really like it, but I'm like, you know what? I want to change the material on this character. Never do that in your scene. If you need to change the shader, if you need to change the surface, if you need to change anything on this character, open up your referenced file, do it there. There have been so many times, I can't tell you how many times, I've opened somebody's shot and they referenced a character with certain shaders and then applied new shaders in the scene. And what that does is whenever you unreference the character, it creates this green mass foster parent node that almost makes it impossible to reference in a brand new rig because Maya just doesn't know what to do with it. So be very careful about changing things in your referenced file and then replacing that reference here. So I've got this guy inside of here. Cool, cool. And now to find a character that I want to use that will work. I've been an animator for... Let's find out. How long have I been an animator? It's Quasney. How is the Quaz? So I have been an animator for fall 2017. Four years and a few months, give or take. 5 years. No. 5 years and a little more, give or take. It was solid. Easy day at work, rather chill, not a lot of deadlines. And yeah, I basically just got to kind of polish up all day and export some stuff, so it was pretty chill. I liked it. But for anyone who wants to see my posts, this is where I started back fall of 2017 trying to animate. Oh, these were such fun times. Animating bouncing balls. This was my squirrel house. Yep, I work at Luma Pictures. I previously was working at Ember Lab on Kane and Bridge of Spirits. Before that, I worked at a small VFX feature place. Also, I ran over a cord. Yeah, I was working at a small VFX house, and before that, I was at AM. Hey, Ayub, how are you doing? Nice to see you again. So, now that I've done all this, I'm going to try and find a rig that's going to go into Roomba. So, as I showed before, there is always hope, Pratham. You just got to work hard enough. So this character actually works pretty well. As you can see, it's very fast. Everything works nicely, except there's something wrong with the way the arms have been rigged that isn't quite supported in Roomba. So if I'm looking at the Roomba script editor, I'm located in Oklahoma, the middle of nowhere. As of yet, I've been lucky enough that all of my jobs, except for my first one, have been remote. So I've been able to work from home. Oh, I also worked as a shot creator day for night, in between Ember Labs and Luma. But I've been able to work remotely for almost 2.5 years now, which has been really, really nice. So it looks like I'm getting some skin cluster errors, as well as a couple other interpolation things when I try to export this character into Roomba. So I may have to, unless I want to dive deeper into this, find another rig I want to use for this shot. So you guys can see all the lists of rigs I have. If anybody has suggestions for rigs that I could try, shout them out. Ooh, I know. What's her name? Mulan rig. I've tested this before and I think it would work. Yes, the Mulan. The Thor rig, that would be cool. I'm gonna have to try that after I try this. Get rid of that. There we go. This would be cool. She's already set up with samurai, so like it already fits within the realm of what I'm trying to go with, and that would be really cool. So what I'm gonna try is I'm just gonna hit the export to Roomba and see what happens. Thank you, Matty. Let's go ahead and close this, and here we go. And it looks like we have a successful change into Roomba. Everything's working very fast, very nice. Always found it strange how these guys were not orient constrained of some kind to the legs, but you know, it's just something I'll have to do in posing to make sure it stays. Unless it doesn't, it's just not supported. We'll see. Nope, it is not. Okay, cool. So let's see what kind of errors we get. Unsupported. Floating rig node. Time to unit conversion. We have the Gumroad for Leo. We are currently making a studio website where basically we're going to be a all-in-one support website for our rigs. So we're going to have a simple about us page where it's like, who are we, what's our mission, what's our goals, all of that. We're going to have a highlight page where we can highlight you guys' work. So if you have a cool shot, maybe we can render it, light it, whatever. We can just post your play blasts on the website so you guys can see what our rigs look like when you animate them. We're going to have a resources page. So all of the resources that you're going to need to animate with our rig. So rig overviews, rig breakdowns, how to use IKFK switching with the rig, how to render with the rig, how to use our pose library, how to set up pose library. Basically all the information you need is going to be in our resources page per rig. We're also going to have a much simpler, much more streamlined shop page that will be powered through Gumroad that we're going to use as well. So keep an eye out for our website. We're currently in development. Hopefully it'll be ready sometime soon. No, thank you for the links, A2the J. Very, very appreciated, because then I don't have to go fumbling around for them anyway. But yes, that's our link tree, giving you all the channel box information that you need. But yeah, I like this pretty well so far. I wish they rigger had done some sort of constraint, orient constraint to the root or something to allow these to stay pointing down. Let's see, this is the base. If I constrain orient constraint, oops. What in the blazes was that? Oops, I did the wrong parent-child because I'm dumb. Okay, orient, there we go. To me, that makes more sense. Making sure that these point down at all times. But I understand that that doesn't work perfectly, so I'm just going to leave it as is. But anyway. So this works in Roomba. Honestly, I like the control layout like this. It would be cool if I could do the painting technique of actually going in and saying, okay, if I want to select this control, I'm going to paint these faces here. If I want to select this control, paint these, but that's a lot of time, and I prefer animating with controls. So this works great. For now, I'm going to go ahead and reference her into Maya just to get everything laid out the way that I want it. Mulan rig, just so I can get a rough placement of where the characters are going to be at the beginning. So to answer your question, Animation Mob, there's a couple things you have to think about. If I'm working freelance, it doesn't matter what state I'm in or what state the studio I'm working for in. They're essentially hiring me as a studio. It would be like if I was my own studio and they're just hiring me to do a service, in which case it would be like if a studio in Arizona paid a studio in New Mexico to do work. Like each studio has to pay their own taxes. There's not really that much overlap. So I was in Oklahoma working for a studio in California. That studio paid taxes to California. I paid my taxes to Oklahoma because, you know, freelancers, contract workers don't pay taxes until the end of the year. Whenever I became an employee working at Luma, I get a percentage of my check taken out from the government to federal and state taxes. And what was happening, because Luma's in California, I'm in Oklahoma, I was having to pay California state. I was having California state taxes taken out of my paycheck. But what Luma did, which I'm sure a lot of big studios do, is as soon as they have an employee hired from a different state than them, what that company will do is they will apply for a license in the state you're working in. So what Luma did was they applied for a business license in Oklahoma, and therefore whenever they would pay me my money, rather than paying my taxes to California, they would pay my taxes to Oklahoma. So that's kind of what it is from the business side of things, is what they would have to do. But typically businesses will work with you to figure out to get you to be able to work across states. But for me, all I have to do is just work the work. And at the end of the year, I pay Oklahoma state taxes, but I will not pay California state taxes, because unless you're living, driving, using California resources, you don't have to pay the taxes in the state that you're working in unless you are there, which I believe is true with all 50 states. There may be few states that require you to pay taxes even if you don't live there, but I know that was a subject of a bunch of legal disputes between states. And I believe, I don't know for all the states, but I believe in most states it's that way. Unless you live there, you don't have to pay the taxes there, even if you work remotely there. So hopefully that answers your question. And as for having to live there, which kind of goes with the taxes, it depends on the studio. So I know a couple people that, like, you know, if you work for feature, if you work... Yes, Vancouver very much so is not that way. I believe Vancouver offers a very lucrative tax break to all studios in the city, provided they only hire people within the city. So I've had talks with a lot of studios in Vancouver that we ended up not working out because they were requiring me to move, because legally they cannot hire anyone remotely if they're outside of the city of Vancouver, because they'll lose their big tax breaks. So there will be certain cities like that that will not allow you, but most studios in the US right now, even say Disney, if you're well known enough, if you have a good enough reel, if you're experienced enough, will allow you to work from different states. But typically the big studios like Disney require you to move to California even if you're working from home. But I have heard and seen exceptions to that rule. But yes, for a studio like in Vancouver, I don't believe that's possible. So yeah, hopefully that helps. The Milan rig, let's go ahead and... Oh, and she tiny. Because I scaled this up to the size of Leo, but now that I'm using Mulan, I'm going to have to scale her up too. Does she have a master scale, or does she just have individual scale? There we go. Cool. So just for funsies, what I'm going to do, modify, match translation. I'm just going to temporarily constrain Parent, boop. There we go. And I'm gonna watch this in my shot cam just to catch the energy. And I'll need to move this dude down. Okay, let's watch this just to see what the character looks like moving around. Sliding it. And let's go ahead and just hide this. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna need a retime, but I'm already liking the camera pretty well and liking what the character is doing. I think it's gonna work quite well. So now that that's figured out, I'm gonna delete the constraint. And I'm gonna go inside of my little Geoman, turn him back on. And let's start just refining my energy pass. So one thing I'm not liking if I'm just watching from a top-down view of this energy pass, because for my energy passes, I try to make sure that they work from world space, feeling really nicely in orthographic view. And then I go in and I base my camera off of that. And then once I get a really good camera pass off of my world, world tumbling perspective view, then I go in and refine my animation. Then I go in and refine my camera after that. So I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, this is nice, but it's feeling really, the energy's dying really quickly from here to here. And basically what I want is it to overshoot and then come back around, essentially. So I'm gonna go into my translate X. I'm gonna get rid of this key because that's kind of pointless. And I'm gonna move this to here. And then I'm gonna try to here, move this. Let's see how that feels. Better, but I think this needs to be behind. I don't like how quickly this is rotating. So I'm going to try to look at my rotation order. That's a bogus rotation order. How about this? I don't like that either. This isn't bad. Oiler filter. Clean this up. rotate Z. This is where it's really nasty. Did I ever have a eureka moment in my animation? No, you're good. I appreciate questions. That's why I do these, is to get good questions. So I appreciate them. I think for me, there's a misconception about eureka moments in that I never realized them until way later. Of like, you know, you always hear about, you hear this cool thing and you're like, oh my goodness, this will change my animation. I never had that in the moment, but I had things where I look back and I say, oh, that was a eureka moment. That's when everything changed for me, because I never realized it at the time. Because I'm always looking for things, I'm always trying to find things that will change my workflow, but I never feel like it's good enough at the time. I never feel like, oh, this is changing my animation. But if I go and look back now and I look at like a wide view, I'm like, that was a eureka moment. And look at how much better my animation got for the next 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And so like one of the big ones looking back now, which I didn't know back then, but I know now, is in class 4, I was in a lecture from Ray Ross, and he was breaking down how an animator thinks. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. That's really useful information, but it didn't seem like it stood out to me until the next day I was animating and I was like, oh, the way Ray Ross said an animator should think, I should do it this way. So then I did that. And then I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again. Now I'm looking back and I'm like, that's where animation changed for me. I didn't know it at the time, but that was a eureka moment. There were other times when I was watching like Sean Lee animate, and there were certain things that he was doing. I was like, that's really useful, but I didn't realize how useful it was. Looking back, I'm like, that was a eureka moment. And it's happened many times. You know, there was a time where I was like, you know what if I would bake my animation to a cube? Pratham, if you're here, you'll enjoy this. Hello, Dawson. I wasn't particularly planning to start feedback today, but if you have something you want to show, I'm more than happy to look at it and give some feedback. I'm just answering questions and putzing around on a shot. So yeah, if you want to show me something, I'm more than happy to give you some feedback on it. But yes, there was one time where I said, you know what, I should bake this animation to a cube. I didn't know it at the time, but that would change my entire life. It would change everything. I went from a simp to a Chad, you know? I went from, you know, a simple animator to the best animator that ever was, because I baked it to a cube. I'm joking. But to some extent, I had no idea how useful baking to a cube was, or what other people say baking to a locator. But I was just working on a shot and I was like, you know what, this dinosaur looks like crap. What if I baked cubes to his head, his body, and his feet, and just looked at them as cubes? And I did it, and then I did something else with cubes, did something else, until I literally baked to cubes on an hourly basis, and it really changed my workflow. I didn't know it at the time. And so kind of where I'm going with this is that eureka moments for me aren't always on what I hear, it's what I decide to do with it. So if I hear something cool and it clicks in my head and I decide to utilize it and use it, it changes my life. There's probably been many eureka moments that didn't do anything for me just because I never thought to use it. So I was born in the cube, molded by it. Yes, exactly. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Okay, cool. So this energy pass so far is feeling better. I'm going to try to start this slide a little bit earlier. There we go. Very nice. And I might try to delay this a little bit. Cool. Another thing I'm going to try to do is when he breaks through, boom. I'm going to try to have him lean into it, the push, and then he starts to run and he'll start to stand himself up. So something like this. How does this look? Bam. Cool. So let's just take the first 126 frames. Ooh, very nice. Let me check this out. I've seen this reel so many. I never remember that it's Trent Corey, but I've seen this reel so many times. It was the, I guess you could call, inspiration of my cube baking journey. Actually, Trent Corey might be the man I'm thinking of. Oh my goodness, if this is the man, maybe it's not. There was somebody that worked at Disney that worked on Raya and the Last Dragon, and he animated the baby and the two monkeys, and he like swings the one around, and then like they pile on top of each other. It was an amazing shot. I've been trying to find out who animated that because I saw it on Instagram and I wanted to go back and watch it, and I can't remember who animated it. But let's see, this is a blocking pass. If I could take a look. Yeah, let me take a look. Madison, feel free to chime in if you would like, because you're probably the only ballerina here. But there you go. You spoke right as I said. But yeah, if you want to give any feedback, you're more than free. But until you're done typing all your dance wisdom, I will go ahead and start, and feel free to contradict me if I say something wrong. Also, it'd be easier. You can also call me on Discord and just tell the notes in person if you'd like. So one thing I'm noticing is this is probably a translation thing from your reference to this rig, but obviously Stan is a massive, very wide-shouldered character. And that's going to change a lot of things of how you... Okay, you're going to call? Cool, cool, cool. Let me answer and make sure that the audio comes through. We're going to pause the music for this occasion. Hello? Hello. Let me make sure my desktop audio is on.
Okay. If
Okay.
this works at all, I don't know. But
let me get you a link to the Discord. And can everybody hear the woman, the myth, the legend, Madison?
It's me, Madison. Hello, everyone. I was like, why am I hearing Dan twice? Because I had the stream up. I was so confused.
Okay, you can. Very, very cool.
Okay, so the only thing that I just want to hop on and say, because I was typing it, but it sounded very confusing as I was typing. So the only thing I was going to say is I would just watch out overall with, I know like the reference you're probably using versus Stan. Stan's a big boy, so it's going to be different, but also this dance is always done with 3 other dancers with him. So, or with the person that you're copying the reference for. So I'm just noticing that the balance is off in a lot of places. So since you don't have 3 other dancers that are holding his hands, the balance is going to be off. So you can't copy 1-to-1 with your reference. So just make sure that you're drawing, like at any given point, draw a line down Stan's body and make sure that he's over his leg. And that ankle is, even though he has tiny little legs, but make sure that it's supporting him, because with you doing this without him having the support of holding on to the hands of like 3 other people next to him, it's going to be off. So you just are going to need to really change how his weight is shifting because he doesn't have that support on either side. So that's just my quick little rant that
I wanted to make sure, because that's what I was going to go for, but I didn't know the reason, and the fact that he's between 2 people makes a big difference.
3. 3 people. So he should like have 3 other people.
Yeah. So ideally for me, where I would lean is right now, this is where his center of mass should be over his body, and he's like 80% off, and he would just fall.
Which is totally correct if he has another person next to him, but yeah.
So what I would try is, first and foremost, straight. I would try to lean him a little more straight, because he's got such a huge body. It's going to complicate things, so maybe more like that. And then get the leg more like this, and then you can get this one more like this. And then you got his head. I'm terrible drawing. I'm doing this with my mouse, but hopefully that gives you the idea of like what you'll need to do through the entire shot. Just overall, like main note, try to get him in balance. So like here, like this is relatively nice, but because he's coming from jumping, I would imagine his body being a little bit farther behind here, so that you're getting something like this. And then here he's more in balance over his body. But do you have any posing notes, ballet form, that you want to give?
Just a couple real quick. Let me actually hop into the Sing Sketch instead of trying to look at this stream 3 miles behind. Okay, one just quick thing is when he does this move at the end, right, he goes down here. One thing is this knee's always going to be bent, because this is like when he's coming down, because this is kind of the you're going to bend here in the knees always when you're dancing this, so that way you can jump up to this like toe here. And then just one thing is like a cleanliness. Also, I'm not sure why my brush is so big on Sing Sketch. Let me see if I can fix it real quick. Okay, there we go. So this is good. I know you can't get like a super pointed foot with Stan, but that works. But just try to really get some clarity in this. Usually this is a move, a pose called like passe in ballet. But basically what you're wanting to get with the legs is like a letter P. So like if this is one leg, this is the other leg, right? You're getting this like letter P with it because you want to get this clear space between the legs. So just try that on, because he does this twice, then he goes over here and is going to do the same thing. Right, this is a little bit better, but just try to get it so that way this little toe, ideally when you're dancing this, you want the toe to just touch the front of the knee. So just try to get that space there. It'll also just from a posing perspective make it feel a lot more clear and a lot more simplified, if that makes
Hello,
sense.
Displant. Thank you for following. Welcome to the stream.
Hello. But yes, so that's kind of just my only
Madison, did you see the chat?
what.
He said, I remember my mom forced me to watch my sister's ballet lessons as a kid. Wish I paid more attention to their form now.
It's crazy, man. Like I was like pre-professional dancer, ballet dancer, like classical ballet dancer before I got into animation. And it's so fun. I was like, what would that have to do with animation? And then I got into animating. I was like, man, you learn a lot about mechanics just from like knowing how your own body moves and stuff. I would always advocate for any animator to take some kind of dance lesson. Doesn't matter what, but some kind of dance lesson. You'll learn a lot about your body and how mechanics move. It's always a good idea.
I can't dance either, but I can watch and animate people dance sometimes.
I mean, that works too. Also, yes, I am a girl that is also, it's me, Daniel, and then another animator named Cynthia, and we all run it together. And usually we stream at different times, but I didn't stream tonight with Dan, but I
Yep.
ended up popping on anyway, so because I got done
Yeah.
early. So
The person that animated this shot, his username is Doston707. But yeah, Madison is an amazing animator. She works with me at Luma. She was in the AM showcase, if anybody's seen that, and she streams off and on. She used to have her own day, but then things got crazy busy, so now she's kind of on a as needed or as want to basis. And so today she was nice enough to jump on to give some dancing notes. But
never I want to hack Dan's streams. I
yeah,
just show up.
yeah, she'll be on and off or through the year, I would imagine, and she sometimes shows up for the interviews as well. So also, just to plug something super quick, Agora Community will be having an interview with the entire team that made Leo, I believe sometime this Thursday.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. So if anybody's part of the Agora community, keep an eye out for that. They will be announcing that and promoting that sometime soon. You want to skip the first two classes. What shots do you feel like you should have on your reel?
A lot.
No.
A view in my.
Well, the first two classes would be animation basics and the first body mechanics. Is that correct, Displant? Animation basics in the first body mechanics class?
I think that is for Anim School.
Before we get into that and for him to give him time to finish, did you have any other overall notes, Madison, or was that the main notes?
That was kind of my basic things. I just kind of wanted to explain better before I tried to type it out, like the note about weight, because that's important with this dance.
What do you think about the hand pose? What would you suggest for that? Because it feels a bit off ballet for me, but what do you think?
Well, I'm sure, like with the actual hand pose, right now it's four girls, and usually their arms are crossing each other and they're like holding each other, so everyone's doing like this cross thing. So instead of that, what I might do, it's hard because I'm thinking about this dance how it usually is, but what you could do just to keep it simple, is something in ballet called like first position. So it's basically what you have, but just imagine him hugging a beach ball that he can't touch his hands to, right? So something more like this. So where there's space right here between the hands. But basically it's going to be something like this. So his hands are out here. So think of them like more, if I'm looking at Stan from like a side profile in this beautiful drawing I'm about to do of him, think about his hands like out here.
Yeah.
Right? So that way there's space here is what we're looking for. And
just,
that'll give him more of a ballet feel.
Just so I can terribly show it, it would be something like, this. like I'm not doing it correctly, you can Google up, is it first position?
Oh, first position. It's pretty good, yeah. Tuck your thumbs in, please.
No, no thank. Ballet
But
first
yes,
position
ballet
for the
first
arm.
position arms. Yeah, so see that
That,
girl like all the way to the right. Yeah.
or this guy. Like, just try to copy this through the
Yep,
whole shot.
exactly. So see, like the hands aren't touching or overlapping, but there's there's space between the fingertips, like you're holding like a big beach ball. That's what we always tell the youngins, the young kids.
And make sure your thumbs are up. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Make sure they're tucked in. That's a big dance thing.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully those notes help. That's kind of just like base, like making sure the
Yes.
dance mechanics work. But yeah,
Super quick
hopefully
notes.
that's helpful.
I'll hop back out because I know it's probably annoying to have me back in and out. Because I'm not watching the stream like late, so
No,
I
you're
will
good. You're
hop
good. Thank you so much for the feedback, and you gave way better notes than I would have. So thank you so much, and hopefully
That's
that
what I'm
was
here
helpful.
for.
But all
Hopefully
right,
so.
see ya.
All right, see y'all. Bye.
And then to answer your question, displant. What I would suggest, if you want to skip, so intro to Maya, if you understand Maya, animation, if you understand it enough to try to advance place, I think you should be fine with your knowledge of Maya. I don't think you need to show anything to say, hey, I know how to use Maya. If you want to skip the animation basics class, what I would suggest, let me just grab a notepad so I remember everything. I would suggest having bouncing ball. Ideally, if you really wanted to show strong basics, have two bouncing balls, one really heavy, one really light. So you're going to have one bouncing ball, then you're going to have two bouncing balls. Yes, one bouncing ball, two bouncing balls, one really heavy, one really light. If you can get this perfect, if you can get the first ball perfect, second ball's perfect, I would even suggest adding a interaction between the balls. So whenever I was in class 1, the first class, I did one bouncing ball and it was pretty good. So then I did two bouncing balls, one really heavy, one really light, and my mentor said, hey, this is pretty good. You're not pushing yourself. Make them interact with each other. So the next week I added where the one ball bounced, the heavy one, and then the light one went boop, 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 like that. Very simple, but it pushed me and it made me try to get really nice fundamentals. These two things, in my opinion, are the two most essential things in animation. I have seen students who do bouncing balls okay, but they end up getting passed to the next class, and I immediately know that they're going to struggle for the rest of the entirety of AM. If you can't do a bouncing ball perfect, time to ban someone. Hold on one second. We love it when bots come into my stream. I forget. Forward. Banned. Gone. All right, so back to my rant about bouncing balls. My opinion is, unless you can animate a bouncing ball of any weight perfectly, you shouldn't be moving on to the next class. Because the bouncing ball is the fundamental of every other aspect of animation. It's forward momentum, it's up and down momentum, it's gravity, going fast down, going slow up. You have rotations, you have squash and stretch. If you cannot animate a bouncing ball perfectly, no matter what you try to animate after that, until you grasp the fundamentals of a bouncing ball, your animation will not be what it needs to be. And I feel very strong because I've been watching students animate for 4 years now. I've been watching the Animation Mentor Student Campus. The students that can animate bouncing balls perfectly typically go on to succeed. The ones that struggle, some of them retake, do it perfectly, and then do very well. The ones that I see struggle the most are the ones that move on to the next classes before they master the fundamentals. So that's my suggestion, is get a bouncing ball that is very, very solid, and then get one with 2 bouncing balls. After the bouncing balls, try to do a squirrel or overlap assignment. Or no. Skip, not yet. A pendulum assignment. A pendulum will just be a block with a streamer. I believe there's free pendulum rigs out there, if I'm not mistaken. Free pendulum rig Maya. High-end 3D. Yeah, I've seen this one used a ton. This is more than adequate to get you what you need. Rusty Animator. Squirrel. Pendulum. Walking. These rigs will get you all that you need. So, a pendulum assignment. For basics, this is talking about if you have an ideal amount of time, right? If you're pressed and you're having to do this all within 12 weeks, do just 1 bouncing ball, 2 bouncing balls, 1 pendulum. If you have more time than just 12 weeks, do 1 pendulum, starting left to right, linear motion, go to stop and overlap. You start in March, so you have 6 to 8 weeks. Cool. Pendulum. If you have extra time, do another pendulum in figure 8 motion. So you would have a pendulum go left to right, and then for the next pendulum, you go down, around, and then back. So you have a figure 8 motion. This would be optional. Then after that, you would do squirrel, which is just bouncing ball with overlapping tail. So you just do a ball that's like boing, 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 and then you animate the tail overlapping behind that. And then once you do you can do 3 bounces. I think I did 4, but less is more. Simpler is better. So yeah, 3 would be more than adequate. Once you do your squirrel assignment, do a simple walk cycle with just the legs. No upper body. These are the absolute essentials. Now, obviously, this is optional here, but these and these are the absolute essentials. Yeah, varied bounces in height, energy, all that good stuff. Additionally to these, some more optional things are is a personality walk, just legs. Let me go ahead and put this. And for practice, again, this all depends on what level are you at, but I would also suggest doing poses. All right, see you, Pratham. Have a good evening. Good luck on your assignments this week. I've been keeping up with some of the stuff you've been posting. I saw your end of term stuff for class 4 and it was really nice. Your shot of the dude with the microphone turned out really nice. So yeah, see you, Pratham. Yes, I can send it to you, this plan. So depending on your skill, I would suggest in your extra time, do poses. Look up figure drawing websites, look up Google images, whatever. Get images of poses and pose those out. So try to do biped single character poses. You don't have to post these on your reel. This would be for personal development, but I've also seen people putting those on their reel. So let me think if I'm missing anything. Bouncing ball to bounce. And this, depending on your skill level, I mean, if I was asked to do these, I could do the bouncing ball assignments each in a couple hours. I could do the pendulum in a couple more hours. I could ideally have this done in a day. Second pendulum, squirrel, walk cycle, maybe another day. And then, poses, personality walk. It might take me 3-4 days to do. If you're much more basic, much more beginner, it might take you 16 to 20 weeks to do it all, depending on what quality you're wanting and how long you have to do it. So I'm not sure what level you're at, Displant, but try to do these, and I would just start here and try to get as many done as you can until you have to submit your reel to Anim School. Yeah. So, start with the bouncing balls. Those are the most essential. If you have bouncing balls, a pendulum, and a squirrel, I think you could probably bypass the first class of basics. Even if you do, you're probably going to be working walk cycles in your second class. It might be a little bit more complicated for you because you're jumping straight into a walk cycle with arms, but it won't be impossible to learn. But these here are what you're going to have to learn, ideally with the squirrel, in order to succeed in the second class. So hopefully that answers your question. And I will paste this in the chat so you can copy it to your computer. But with that, I'm going to do a little bit more here before calling it. I want to watch and see how these new changes affect my camera. Okay, so I'm going to this guy's. I like the slide much better now. Slide, run. I want him to stay here a little bit longer. What are all these keys? Also, I am not a huge fan of this graph editor toolbar. It's just taking up too much space. Okay, there we go. I didn't send you the text file, Displant. I just sent you the actual message in the chat. So if you want to just copy that and paste it to your notepad, you can do that. Slide. Let's go ahead and set a key here on the character. Let me set a marker here. Slide. I'm just going to delay this. There we go. Yep, let me paste it again. There you go. Can you see that? Cool, this feels much better to me now. So he comes in, he slides, and now that he's sliding, I'm losing my pose, so I'm gonna rotate the camera. Like that. to send the camera a little bit farther back like that. There we go. That is way too jerky. Cool. Cool. Slide. Now that that's delayed, I can pull this down a little bit. Actually, I'm going to want to delay this. I don't actually believe so. I'm a huge fan of the Riot League of Legends cinematics. I also love the Blizzard, World of Warcraft, and Overwatch cinematics. I know I've seen, I think, the initial intro Valorant cinematic, like one of the first ones that they came out after the game released. I don't believe I've watched any of the other ones since then. I should probably do that. Riot is always obviously top tier with everything they do, but I guess my only thing with Valorant was like I wasn't as interested in the characters as some of the other game cinematics. Like obviously League of Legends has some of the best characters of any game, thus why we like Arcane so much. But World of Warcraft always had super interesting characters. Even Overwatch weren't as interesting to me, but the stories they had in the shorts were really good. But I guess I need to give Valorant another chance. But the characters' storylines in the first few cinematics I watched just didn't connect with me as much. This is Maya 2022, so this is my first try at it. Let me watch it real quick and put it on stream. Valorant. Cool. Let me... Can you guys see this? Let's watch this.
Really, I could do this all day.
Congratulations. You were undefeated at target practice.
Oh, target practice? KO, are you shading the king?
You're not the king. You have the same score as the rest of us. How about a game where the bot shoots back?
I'll bring the fire in any game you want.
Please, be my guest.
Okay, any other game?
Let's dance. Yeah. Say hello to MaxBot. A perfect blend of tactics and firepower. Now you can train against, well, you.
My money's on the machine.
You got this, pretty boy.
Lucky for you, I buy these by the dozen.
Out of my way, Your Majesty.
Somebody call the doctor. Machine got off the shoulder. Mars, keep the army sucker. Nobody got medicine. No, I'm not a cure. So I'll keep it
Well, this is embarrassing.
Winning requires sacrifice. That's really your style.
Hey fam, let's go again. That bot owes me a coat. My turn. Team Forge, baby! What the?
All right. Playtime's over. Ready up. Team Forge? Really?
What? Fire and steel. Come on. Hey, wait. Ooh. Wait. How about Firewire? Robo Squad?
Oh, the Swagger Express. Roaster and Toaster. You know I'm programmed to kill you, right? Come on, that was a good one.
It was really nice. It's obviously a Riot cinematic when you see the mix of 3D, 2D effects. That's something that Fortiche really picked up on, as well as a lot of the Riot cinematics. But I've always really liked the 3D and 2D mix. Couple things that stood out to me were just they have really good hand animation. Like this guy with the chess, like fingering through that. Anything with FK fingers interacting is always very hard, and to take, an object and flick it through your fingers in animation is very, very technically difficult, and it caught my eye because it was done very well.
Okay.
Like that is just really, really nice. And then later throughout here, the hand interaction,
Winning requires sacrifice. That's really your style.
him messing with that is very nicely done. Ooh. Let me see this for later. But yeah, hand animation is one of those things that I always notice, either if it's good or bad. If it's bad, I notice it. If it's good, I notice it. So that was something else that I really liked. The action shots are all very nicely done. Good camera angles. The running. Nice use of smear frames, 2D effects, leading with the shoulder. Nice cut on the action. Curious if they had have given it like 2 frames repeating action, but it works really well as is. Trained eye. I don't enjoy movies, animated movies much anymore. Like honestly, that's something that I use to gauge how good a movie is if I'm looking at the animation, I'm not that interested in it. I'm more interested in the technical side of it, the animation side of it. If I lose myself like I did before I was an animator, I know it was a good film. Spider-Verse did that to me. I did not notice one thing about the style or the animation until the second time I watched it. The first time I was totally just watching it like I was a kid. Arcane did that to me. Especially, not to give any spoilers, but especially at the end of episode 3. Like, end of episode 3, I was just like staring with my mouth open, just like, are you kidding me? So yeah, if you finished it, you know what I mean by end of episode 3. But like, even How to Train Your Dragon 3, even though like some people say it wasn't the best movie, I was into it because of the series, and because of the series, the trilogy, I think is the best trilogy ever animated. I was just engrossed into that movie from the first to the end. I also tend to be more so at the theater. If I'm at a theater, I'm typically more engrossed in the movie. If I'm watching it at home, I tend to be more cynical about it and just like watching the animation for the breakdown. But yeah, all the action sequences through here are really, really nice. Nice spin around camera action. I'm curious if these were all hand-drawn smears or if they had some sort of plug-in that just would smear. Very cool. But yeah, that's my official reaction, is there are pretty hand poses and pretty hand animation. But I'm gonna have to watch more of the Valorant cinematics. I really, really enjoy them. One of the ones I was just watching the other day was the League of Legends cinematic, The Call. There was some really nice animation in there. But yeah, I can't wait for Arcane Season 2. I was watching the Agora stream today. I didn't get through it because I had to get into some work meetings, but I'm hoping to finish it up soon. But I have seen Rise of the Guardians. It was like, it never got that much clout or credit. But for me, it was actually an underrated movie. Like, I enjoyed Rise of the Guardians. And I thought it was a fun movie. Interesting, good. And I love JP Sands. JP Sands is a really cool guy. Really, really, really good animator. Has a really nice eye for things. I've always wanted to take some classes or get some critiques from him, but it's just never worked out. But yeah, JP Sands is a really cool guy. Another thing I wanted to show that Alan sent. This is the shot I was trying to find, Alan. Thank you for sending this. The main reason for wanting to do this test here, mainly using a cube with squash and stretch, I've done energy passes before like this, where it's got a guy running, he runs, camera, blah, blah, blah. I watch people with really good energy passes, especially when they do cubes. They always use squash and stretch, just simple scaling, but they always use it when animating energy passes. Especially if you watch, Trent Corey, or another one is Nathan Englehart is another one. They always use squash and stretch to dissolve the energy of the cubes to make the energy almost perfect before they ever add a character. That way, when they put the character in, they know when to squash and stretch them. That was my main goal for doing this animation test, is I want to get better at squashing and stretching characters with poses and get my timing better. What do I struggle with most in animation? Get a pencil, because it's going to be a long list. But for me, my biggest struggle has always been, and probably will be for a long time, posing. I'm a very technical animator. I'm a very movement-based animator. And I'm a very feel animator. I've never been very good with graphic shapes. I've never been very good with posing. Obviously, I've improved. And I can actually show that improvement, because it is nice to see how you can go from bad to good with practice. So whenever I was in class 1, my posing was terrible. So this, not bad, but I was basically rotoscoping the pose that I had. This pose, broken. Not a clear line of action, slightly out of balance, no real appeal to it. You know, this, the legs are the legs are broken here. The line of action in the body is very stiff. There's no real flow from the legs to through the body, you know. Not very good. But I continued to work and improve and take classes and all that to where, you know, what I would say is probably my best posing job would be this shot here. Where, like, you know, poses like this. Very strong, very curved spines, easy, nice flow into the legs, nice head placement, goes straight into the body, nice arms, not twinned. Yes, Aaron Baker is amazing, so if he did a posing tutorial, you should watch that. But even through here, like perfect, clean lines through the body. Here, clean lines through the body. Nice, clean, tight poses. So, with, I would say still, even still, like here, with pushed body poses, I feel like I've improved a ton due to this shot itself. I feel like because I've done a lot of practice with it, I can also get relatively nice, subtle facial posing that, like with this shot, like I feel like my mouth posing is pretty good in this shot and my facial posing is all pretty good. Where I struggle is areas like this, which this is an old shot, but like when it's not a subtle shot, but it's not a broad shot either, where I'm trying to get appealing poses that's not pushed and not subtle. It's somewhere in the middle. That's where I feel like I struggle the most in animation. Secondly, I feel like I struggle with timing, spacing, pushing things to a 10, to an 11. Like, if you had a really good animator, like a really good one, and he was just to take my shots and retime them, my shots would probably be twice as good as they are now. Like, pushing things is something that I'm really, really focusing on. And then another thing which I'm working on in this test is timing, spacing, but also squash and stretch. Really using squashing and stretching to my advantage to make my timing and spacing more dynamic. If you want to see my demo reel, I can find right here. My demo reel is now public because Kana is out for the world. So I can copy this, but actually let me just play it here for funsies. Also, this has a way better render now, thanks to a amazing lighting artist. Her name is, oh my goodness, I can't remember her name. Brenda Areza did all the texturing, surfacing, and rendering for this shot.
Zajiro, you have the power to stop this. We should drive it out.
These are all my shots on, a few of the shots I did on Kana Bridge of Spirits. This was a short shot I did during Amanda Zima's class at Kyoso.
We're not meant to suffer such pain. Grief is natural, but it can imprison us, change who we are.
I've never seen anything so perfect. Then you whispered that you loved me. But I guess if I love you, I should let you move on.
So yeah, that's my demo reel. I'm not happy with it. I would love to add a lot more acting shots on there, but as of yet, it's hard to animate big, nice acting shots for your reel whenever you're working full time and all your time animating is done after hours or on weekends. So I'm trying to force myself to do short tests to focus on certain things I'm lacking. That way, whenever I do end up taking a break from work, I'm way more equipped to do nice demo reel worthy shots quicker. So how to change clothes of a shot? It depends on the rig. Most rigs, so let's say this one, the way that I would do it, just because I have this character up, let's just say I want to give her, let's say I want to give her a long sleeve shirt and long pants. I'm not going to show the whole method because it's very time consuming, but the way that I do it is I make geo selectable, and I'm just going to delete, and I'm just going to select her body geometry, duplicate it, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to make pants first. I'm just going to delete this, and now we have the start of some pants. Delete these, delete the foot. There we go. And now let's just assign a new Lambert. Let's just call it pants shader. There we go. And now let's zero it out. Boom. Now we have some very rough pants. Now how do we get them to be bigger? I'm going to go to the modeling toolkit, mesh tools, sculpt tool. I'm going to set the strength to 0.1, and I'm just going to hit flood. And there we go. Now they're slightly bigger. That's good enough for now. I'm going to turn on my symmetry, and I'm going to go in and just fix these areas. Oops. Clearly that wasn't a good idea. I'm not going to sculpt. Oh, did I accidentally delete this face? Okay, so I'm going to go edge, edge, modeling toolkit, bridge. There we go. And then just to refine things, I'm going to grab this edge, this one, and I'm just going to pull them down. There we go. And then vertex like this, pull it out. There we go. We have some relatively nice pants. I don't like how this dips down here, so I'm going to soft select this, pull it up, soft select these, pull them down. There we go. Pull this up, pull this out, and then I'm going to go to the mesh tools. I'm going to go to relax and just start relaxing the back because I don't want this big crease. So then I'm going to smooth tool and just smooth like this. And then I'm going to go back to the sculpting tool and I'm going to sculpt this back out. Then I'm gonna probably vertex here, grab that, pull it up, pull it back in, and then just keep working this until I have Yes, it will be on the YouTube, and I will try to clip this specifically if I can and have it as a specific clip so you guys can refer to it. That's also why I'm trying to make it relatively quick so you can refer to it without having to watch a bunch of big long explanations to it. And so this is roughly what I would do to get some nice pants. And then I'm just going to select the pants, shift select the body, deform, wrap deform. Make sure you have exclusive bind on, hit create. And now we have pants. Now, if I don't want penetrations like that and I don't want to have to clean them up, I could clean them up. It would be pretty easy to do. Just grab this, pull it in, oops, turn down my soft select, pull this in, pull this in. There we go, that's cleaned up. What I also do sometimes if I get penetrations when deforming geometry is I will select faces of everything not being seen underneath. So I'm like, okay, select these. So here we go. This is everything not being seen, and I'm just going to assign a new Lambert. And then I'm going to make that Lambert transparent so you cannot see it. That way you just have the pants, and then whenever I wrap deform it, which I do need to still do, even if the geometry penetrates through, you're not going to be able to see it. So that's how I would go about making clothing for characters. A shirt might be a little more complicated because let's just very quickly show a couple issues you'll run into. Let me just assign a new material, a Lambert. So let's say I'm wanting to make a shirt. Okay. Let's go ahead and delete these. Let's just say for time's sake that it's a short sleeve shirt. Okay, delete these, delete. Okay, so now we have the start of a shirt. Boom. Delete the head. Okay, here we go. What are we going to do with this? Shirts don't have belly buttons. At least we should hope not. So I'm going to delete this. And now what am I going to do? Lazy way of doing it, which is probably the way that I would do it, is just go to the modeling toolkit, bridge, bridge, bridge. And then once I've bridged, I'm going to multi-cut in the center. And then I'm going to bridge these three edges together, which is not working. Beautiful. Bridge these together, and then multi-cut this to this, and this to this. There we go. And then I can mesh tools, relax that out. The easier way that I would probably do is I would probably go to mesh. Maya 22 and on has a, where is it? I'm in Maya 2019. I'm dumb. Never mind. We're not going to show retopology. But, you know, the way that I just showed there, this will probably work. If I don't want to spend a ton of time, I can just smooth this out. There we go. Now it looks nice. Obviously, we're not going to have these intense breast extensions because it's a shirt, not a body. So I'm probably going to smooth tool, turn on, and just smooth these out just a little bit so we get less pronounced chest and get more like it would look with a shirt. And I'm going to take the shirt tool, sculpt tool, and just bring the entire top out so it looks more like a shirt. And then relax tool, relax all of this so we don't get such harsh lines. And there we go. It's not great, but I'm going to call it good. I'm going to go to mesh tools, sculpting tools, flood it, zero it out. Let's go ahead and delete this. And there we go. We have a shirt. I can wrap deform it like I wrap deform the other one, and we're good to go. Just to show you a little higher quality work that I've done, just so you don't think that this is the quality of rig mods that I make. Wonderwell. This is currently for sale on Gumroad, but this is a set of clothing that I made for the Leo mod. Yes, so edge loops is something that's very easy. I prefer using the multi-cut tool where I hold down Control and I can add edge loops as needed. But you can also use the insert edge loop tool here where you can use relative distance to click an edge loop, multiple edge loops. I can do like 15, boop, 15 edge loops in between there. Why this is needed is because if I create a cube here, and it's that weird Maya glitch where it won't let me create a cube. Hold on. Cube. What the heck? Why won't it let me create a cube? The clothings that I created are unwrapped, but I have a full, every mod you make for Leo has a demo on how to, a quick, I think it's like a 2-minute demo, how to set it up with the Leo rig. For texturing, yes, I UV wrapped those myself. They're not great. Also, this Maya is kaput, so I will show it in this Maya. Actually, let me just open up another one. But yes, they are. So the ones that I created for Milan, the ones that I just duplicated, depending on how clean you are, yes, they will be UV mapped because her skin is UV mapped. So if you just duplicate her skin, scale it out a little bit, manipulate some things, it should still be UV-able. It still should be already UV'd. If it's not already UV'd, you can UV it again. It's pretty easy to UV clothes. I typically, what I do for UVing is I do normal based, which just UVs everything seamed together. And then I manually go in, cut the seams where normal clothes would be. So, you know, there's a seam right here, seams here, there's seam on the side of the clothing. And then unfold them and it UVs very nicely. Hide the underneath so the software renders less faces, right? Do you do the same for hair? I don't hide the skin underneath so it renders less faces. I do it because sometimes if you're not skinning geometry to skin, if you're skinning it, you can do you can do blend shapes and stuff like that to keep penetrations from happening. But with wrap deforming, sometimes when you move the wrong way, things penetrate through the skin. So that's why I turn it off so you don't get penetrations. For hair, that's not as big an issue. Hair is thick, you don't get penetrations, so I don't typically hide skin underneath for that. So the reason for edge loops is if I have a cube here, let's say this is a piece of clothing, right? And I want to make it look nicer because what I typically always do is I smooth mesh. Boop. Look at that. It's no longer a cube. So if I'm making a piece of clothing and I have a really nice piece of clothing, it's going to mess up what it looks like if I hit smooth mesh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, in theory, I'm going to add edge loops. Mesh tools, insert edge loops. I'm going to add edge loops to the edge of pieces that I want to keep. So let's say I make a sleeve, right? And I don't want that sleeve, when I smooth it, to slide up the arm. So I'm going to add edge loops to the sleeves. That way when I smooth it, it just makes this nice smooth geometry and it doesn't actually destroy what I modeled. And so here we go. Now that I've added edge loops, look at that. We have a nice smoothed cube because the edge loops kept it from getting destroyed. So yeah, hopefully that tutorial helps. I'll try to save that out as a clip for you guys, but you can always refer back to that. And if you guys want, post in the Discord that you want to see a demo of how to make mods, and I'll do a full length, like 2-hour stream of making really, really high quality mods where I go from concept, looking up reference images, modeling, UV wrapping, texturing in Substance Painter, and setting it up to render. So if you guys want to see that, let me know in Discord, and I will do that next week, a full-length mod demo, if you guys would like to see that. So let me know in the Discord. It's 12:40. I have a full day of work tomorrow, so I'm probably going to call it here. Thank you guys for showing up to the stream. And yeah, it's nice to get back into streaming. So thank you guys for showing up, and I will see you guys next week. See ya.